I am Melanie Winter. I'm founder and director of the River Project. We're a nonprofit organization working on watershed issues all over Los Angeles County. I grew up in Burbank. This river did not have any of this habitat in it because the county's maintenance at the time, since they built the channels in our rivers, till the Clean Water Act passed, in fact, was to bulldoze it annually. Didn't mean it wasn't there, it was just regularly bulldozed. So I grew up with no awareness of a living river, as did many, many people who are native Angelenos. Clean Water Act passed, I left town, flash forward decades later I come back and I'm stunned to see this. They had to stop bulldozing because of the Clean Water Act, and the habitat reasserted itself. Another example of riparian habitat reasserting itself very quickly is right behind us at Taylor Yard. That was an active rail yard from World War I until the late 80s, and you can still hear a little bit of the remnant activity behind us right now. Lo and behold, within 4 or 5 years, we had mature willows, we had a little wetland happening, we had scrub vegetation, we had mule fat all over the place. It knows it belongs here. Riparian habitat will come back, and that's just to say, once we get to the point where we start to revitalize our rivers, creeks, and streams here in Los Angeles, we're not going to have to recreate them from whole cloth. They will come back, and come back very strong and healthy. And I want you all to look at this river behind us and think about what it would mean to you in Ballona to have something alive like that, from its headwaters all the way down to the wetlands, an interface between a living stream like that and the wetland, a more natural interaction between those two systems. It got its name, this area, because when the Portola expedition came around just south of here, this way and up this way, following the advice of their advance men, they came into this incredible valley with a wide flowing river. The first descriptions of Los Angeles are written about where we are right now. A wide flowing river with fish and habitat, I mean just animals and fish and birds and everything you'd want to survive. Now they've been coming up from Baja and they've not seen anything like this in terms of a place you could actually settle and have water abundantly. This was in August, by the way. Water, green hills back then at that time with our native vegetation, fish, and higher order predators that they could then predate and survive without a whole lot of fuss. That was an extraordinary situation. This was Eden as far as they were concerned. That's how they described it. It's pretty much the beginning of how Los Angeles got its image as Eden, this valley right here. We are sitting in a narrow pass between two sets of hills, the ends of Santa Monica's and the Repetto and Verdugos over here. All the water from the Los Angeles River and Tujunga Wash through the San Fernando Valley come between this pass, and the groundwater here is pretty close to the surface. So even without stuff from Tillman and LA Glendale, you would have water here pretty much year-round because the groundwater is up pretty high. Since we do own the land along our river, creeks, and streams already and don't have to purchase it, which is usually the reason that's given for not having more parks and open space because of the high value of land, it's the logical place to go, not just for parks and prettiness, but water supply and water quality and our future and our children's future in this region.
The City of LA is off and running on the master plan for the revitalization of LA River. That's the entire 32 miles that runs from Los Angeles out in the valley at Owens Mouth all the way down to Vernon to the south of downtown. The entire river goes beyond that. It's another 51 miles in total. The goal here is to restore it to its natural state as best we can without sacrificing any flood control aspects, especially in light of what happened in New Orleans. We can incorporate both environmental benefits as far as ecological restoration, habitat, recreation, bike paths, green areas, some ancillary housing and businesses that are green housing and businesses with an umbrella of sustainability. Mayor Villaraigosa is all about making us the greenest city, big city in the world. The two biggest parts of that, I think, and I believe he shares, and I said this at our last Ballona meeting, our LA River and Ballona ecosystem. Those are the two centerpieces of making LA the greenest city in the world. You'll see the mayor issue an executive directive on sustainability that directs city departments and hopefully even some private firms to start getting with the sustainability concepts. You saw in the video when they talk about the federal mandates that the city of LA and other cities have to face. They're called total maximum daily loads, TMDLs. Our latest estimate from Shahram Karagani, who is kind of our guru of stormwater cleanup, is best case scenario of $2 billion, worst case scenario of $8 billion for the city of LA. We did get Prop O, which is $500 million thanks to the voters, but they don't realize that's just a down payment on meeting all these mandates, and that at some point, probably 5 to 10 years from now, we're going to have to go back for more money.
The Ballona Creek watershed had 64 miles of perennial stream course. Blue line perennial streams that are shown on a USGS map in 1900. 116 miles of intermittent streams, seasonal streams. So we're looking at about 180 total stream miles. And so we dramatically changed this landscape over the last 100 years. I mean, we worked really fast to bury a lot of streams. And today, you might approximate 20 miles of streams in a natural corridor that remain. And most of those 20 miles are in intermittent stream channels up in the headwater canyons, some of which are now threatened by development. But I think we're talking about a sort of groundwater reservoir that was supporting a lot of vegetation, that was creating a much cooler environment. We just saw the willow forest of the LA River. We would have been seeing something similar to that in parts of Ballona. We would have been seeing different kinds of stream characteristics along its many paths. As we go over the rise on Silver Lake Drive, we will be entering the Ballona Creek watershed. According to national standards, we should be having 10 acres of open space per 1,000 residents. Average is 1.106 acres per 1,000 residents. That's the average. So we're 1/10 of the national recommended acreage. The 5 poorest council districts in the city of LA, and that would include some of the districts that we're about to drive into and through, average 0.455 acres per 1,000 residents. The 5 poorest districts represent 17% of total neighborhood park space. And I don't have the list of the 5 poorest districts, but I'm pretty sure that some of them, at least 3 of them, are in this watershed, and that would be Reyes, Harts, and CD9. Blanking. Jan Perry, thank you. So, and probably part of Garcetti's district as well. So, you know, there's a real need on this side of the watershed for us to be looking at how to create more open space, to create more parity at a community level for people with access to open space. Now, the other side of the equation is density. And here we are, by the way, in this former stream corridor. I don't know if you've been feeling that sense of canyon and ravine as you're driving down. You do enough of this, you drive all over LA and you're like, oh my God, I just went over a stream. You know, even though it's dry, it's there. Now, looking at in terms of density, I looked at the West LA Mar Vista area, and this is from 1990 Census Bureau statistics. A lot of that area averages 3,700 people per, I think it's square mile, to 7,400 people per square mile. In some areas it goes up to 12,000. That's about roughly equivalent to the densities of places like Philadelphia, London, Portland, and St. Louis. On the eastern part of the watershed, where I've been talking about these low park acreages, we're averaging 12,000 to more than 50,000 people per square mile. Comparable to your experience of San Francisco, Mexico City, New York, Hong Kong, Paris, or even Calcutta. There were ways to daylight streams through here. We could be bringing back pockets of habitat and stormwater functionality that would really benefit the residents. When you think about the need, not just for active recreation, but for nature experiences. Like Melanie was saying, she grew up along the LA River and didn't know that there could be life on the LA River as a child. I grew up in Hawthorne and I never saw a stream flowing in the South Bay or anywhere in the LA area. I had to go to Kentucky to my grandfather's house to see a stream.